Welcome to Disambiguation. I'm your host, Michael Fauscette. Each week, we interview experts in artificial intelligence, generative AI, and business automation to help business leaders understand how to use these tools for the biggest business impact. Our show today is AI is the biggest distraction in sales, while the hard work is still human. I'm joined by Dr. Deepak Bhootra, founder of RISEUP at Work. Welcome, Deepak.
Thanks for having me, Michael. My pleasure.
So just to get us started, you have a really interesting background. I mean, 30 years in sales, sales ops, a doctoral degree studying job satisfaction and organizational commitment of salespeople, ICF coaching certification, Lean Six Sigma, a lot of deep work around CRM and CPQ pricing at companies like HP. Give us just a bit of your background and then talk a bit about why you founded it and how you founded RISEUP at Work.
Yeah. So my life story is very long. If I sat there, we could do another podcast for 5 hours. But I've always done jobs that I would honestly argue are the intersection of people and performance. I really love selling, operations, pricing, and systems because they all help me become a better seller. My selling journey started completely by chance very early. But I also exited sales hardcore, Michael, at age 33. My boss brought me back with a 20% pay increase. And then at age 35, I said, I cannot take this anymore. It's painful. And a lot of people tell me, well, that's funny coming from a guy that's so good at mental resilience and telling other people to change. And I said, that's how I became good because I understood my fallibility. So there's a certain pattern that I keep seeing happening across. So I actually ended up being a Sandler trainer, Michael, and I became a Sandler franchisee. And along the way, I actually decided that I want to spend more time also helping with early career people, right? So what I came across was that there's a lot of things that companies do with salespeople. They invest in tools, yet people still struggle. You have all these resources thrown at people, yes, people struggle. So the question is, we did automation 30 years ago, robotics and stuff. Now we're doing AI, and we are literally dumping people at the same rate that we've been doing for the last 10 years in any case, right? So you actually realize that the more automation you see, the more AI you see, you ultimately realize the core survival skills are going to be back to the human touch, human element to it. Now, will we ever go back to a workforce that was 1,000 people? Maybe it's 800 now, maybe it becomes 700. I think that shrinkage will happen. There's also something else happening. New skills need to be developed. The reality is that, don't know how to say this, Michael, but if you dump 1,000, you're not going to hire 1,000 to replace those skills, right? And you're not hiring from the same bottom of the pyramid. Now you're hiring PhDs and mathematicians. There's a huge, I would call it the deconstruct of the social construct that's happening, that people thought that they had a bargain with their politicians and stuff. And I think it's all going to be torn apart, but it's fun. That's where my background is. So RISEUP comes in because I want to build something that helps 21 to 35-year-olds very early in their careers to actually decipher and understand how do you exist in this new world. What skills do you need to have? And AI, to be honest with you, is not part and parcel. It's like saying you can't be an accountant without a calculator. My response now is you cannot be a salesperson or a professional white collar. And if you have a LinkedIn profile, you got to be on AI, end of story. And it's got to be part of your DNA now. Anyone who says they don't like AI, it's artificial, it's trained on it, I cannot figure out what does that even mean. Do you still use abacuses or do you use calculators? Yes or no?
Right. No, I mean, I think, that's, it's been an interesting time over the last several years, right? I mean, all the conversation around AI. And when we were doing our prep conversation, you said something which I actually used in the title of the episode, but I really like this. AI is the biggest distraction that's ever come across us. And, your point about salespeople in particular using AI just for the easy stuff, right? Like, here, draft this email for me, for example, or they already know how to do it, but they default to the easy thing.
Yeah.
But they're not using it for the hard stuff, self-reflection, deal analysis, honest look at what went wrong. I mean, why is that, do you think? And what's driving that avoidance?
It's actually very easy when you think about it. You're going to laugh. AI is seductive because it creates this feeling of mass momentum. Yeah, I made a video of myself. Oh my gosh, I never looked at a problem this way. So what you're getting is that you're getting visible output, which comes out very quickly, and it's an inherent cheapness to it. They may be running at losses, but you and I are paying maybe $20 a month to get over deluge of stuff, right? And what is reality with human beings is that, and even in selling, if you think about it, when you get a buyer that's overly enthusiastic and overly excited and overly sharing, you confuse that to mean that activity is progress. It's not. And the easiest way that happens then is the same thing comes back. You want to move your conversation with the customer forward, you use AI. And you and I know moving the customer conversation is easy to do, but are you moving the right conversation with the right context? How do you do that? And that's the illusion that AI creates for people. AI tells you how to sharpen your message. I get that. But at the end of the day, if everyone is sharpening their message, then will everyone get the time from the buyer? The answer is no, they won't. So now the differentiator is going to be that obtuse observation that you put into that message. So people, it's easy to write an email because there's no harm done. And in selling, there's one reality, Michael, that I want to call out to everyone on this call. Salespeople have this illusion or aura created. They work a thankless job. They are super good at what they do. They do a noble profession. They solve problems. Therefore, they must earn 3x, 6x of what a normal man would earn, right? Now, ask a person with that mindset, would he ever admit he uses AI in his work? He will admit it, number one. Because the second he says, I got better because of AI and my win rate went from 33% to 62%, the company is going to say to him, tell us how. They're then going to take that, they're going to most likely name the AI agent in honor of him. And then he's going to be sitting at home one day without a job, watching that AI agent take his colleagues' jobs also from him. That's just the reality. Anything that you can do that can be codified will get wiped out. Now the question is, what will not get codified? And I'm asking salespeople to focus on those nuances. Your survival is going to be using AI as a means to an end. The end is augmented intelligence, which is how do you become sharper by the use of AI? That's the argument I use. And I don't want to get into an AGI conversation with you and all that because you're an expert and I am not. But all I'm saying to people is that I'm exhausted by this human in the loop process. All I'm saying is that you are the loop. You are. AI is the orbital around you. And when you look at it that way, you actually realize that it's not a threat. Use it to your betterment, use it to your client's betterment without ever losing your dignity and your judgment in the moment. That's it. That's how I would position it, sir.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because obviously there's a lot of fear. I think when I talk to companies, I see this, talk to people about, oh, the AI could replace me. And I guess that kind of plays to what you're saying, that I'll use it for the simple things that are there to automate
Yeah.
because they don't
Yeah.
involve me. They don't, they don't take my judgment that I think is irreplaceable. But I mean, but that's a problem from a sales leader, sales management
It's
perspective. How do
yeah.
you break that dynamic?
Look, what you've just highlighted is actually truth. It's real. There is this unspoken tension, and no one wants to call out the elephant in the room, and I just did it, right?
Yeah.
So look, people do not just adopt tools rationally, right? You can't just tell me that CRM is awesome, just pick it up. People will ask you what's in it for them, right? And it's always about survival and status. So for me, the way that I have leaders working is to say as follows. I want you to improve. I want to improve the strategic work. And I want you to become less defensible about how you go about doing it. What is happening right now is that a lot of salespeople believe that their augmentation through AI is going to lead to redundancy because of the threat I mentioned. Now the question is acknowledge that that is true. Now what do you need to do? This is what I would recommend they need to do is that, start with the low risk, low value, low visibility task. That's great, right? That then takes away, it preserves the mystique around the judgment. I get it, keep it.
Right.
Now comes the bad news. If you continue like that, you're actually going to find out that the very same system is now going to, everyone is rising, but you are kind of stuck because you're using AI at the lowest level.
Yeah.
So now the question is, what behavior do you think your sales leader is going to reward? And whether a sales leader likes it or not, he is going to reward people going beyond using AI in the right places. So that's my encouragement. To break this dynamic, sales leaders actually need to position AI with the right change management to make it very clear that we are all going to use AI. So for me to claim that AI therefore has given you the aura, that it made you successful, therefore I can cut your salary, should not be on the table. The value that you need to talk about is that we expect you to use AI, we respect you for using AI, and now the criteria that we judge you on are going to be on not typing speed or your email generation speed, but the fact whether you're using your judgment, whether you develop the right trust, whether your decision quality is improving or not. Change the metrics. Right now, a lot of companies tell me as follows. We used to send 12,000 emails per month, Deepak. Now we send 62,000 emails a month. And my question is, did your revenue jump up in that ratio? The answer is no. Why? Because people like you have gone and created a cold email nightmare. There are at least 17 companies that are making 10 million ARR per annum for doing cold emailing infrastructure, a system that doesn't gain employment to anyone. It's a pure automation engine running to scale. And when you're going to scale, even I look at my own mailbox, it is so bad, Michael, that
Mhm.
emails coming from you, sir, are most likely going to get disrespected by the system.
Yeah.
So, it's very clear. Sales managers need to understand this is labor compression. We respect that. It is. We are going to compress labor. And in the same way that we used to tell them that, CRM only judges this, but now CRM systems are very complex and they cover the full value chain. Same will happen with AI. The focus, however, has to be on moving the metrics to not use AI where it corrodes your judgment, but use AI where it sharpens your judgment. And now my criteria for judging that is going to be the quality of your conversations, doing surveys with customers to actually ask them, is this someone that you trust and would buy from in the future? And bring that into the mix. Don't get caught up with how much AI is being used or how many people have created prompt guides that can be used within an organization. That's the easy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I often think about how much time I wasted. Actually, I've written an agent that does this for me in the mornings now, deletes all those cold outreach emails that, they used to kind of break my heart in a way because I feel for the salesperson that's involved in this. And I'm like, why didn't you just spend 5 minutes looking at my profile, read my website? You'd know that I didn't need the thing. I did not have the problem you said I had, and I did not need the thing you were trying to sell me, right?
It's
It's frustrating.
it's Michael. There's something happening in sales which you mentioned, and I just quick aside. Think about it, Michael. You have people making tools that scan the customer's writing style to tell you how to position and then also tell you what his disk style is going to be.
Mhm.
I have 6 customers right now that have used my services to revamp their LinkedIn profile. I have written there about me using my English and my words and how it should be read by the receiving. Now, if you were to run a profile on that, you're actually not going to be able to understand. You're most likely going to pitch to someone who's actually a simple guy, but he sounds direct because I wrote it for him. There's a huge caution. That
Yeah.
comes back to the same thing, right? Yesterday, someone told me, the contracts that you sent, Deepak, are very aggressive. But when you explain it to me and explain it, it sounds reasonable. You sound like a reasonable man. And that's the caution I'm giving to people. You're going
Yeah.
to send a message. You're going to sound like everyone else. You're going to lose. And at the end of the day, same thing. Write as much as you want, but ultimately talking is where you're going to make the difference. And I have a prediction that in 2 years from now, the only salespeople standing are those who talk very well,
Mhm.
which is true today also. The best salespeople talk very well. It's going to be going to go full circle, but we just have to go through this. This is paying the school fees, right, Michael? You have to go through the pain because we really don't know what the end is. For me, this is very different, Michael. When
Yeah.
I first saw the TV, color TV, the internet, Facebook, I didn't care. This time I am actually caring because I'm learning. And when I look at the amount of learning I have done, I'm not learning new languages, Michael. I'm just that
Mhm.
I've gone into topics and subjects that I would have never found the time for.
Yeah.
Tangents come up. I can actually have I'm digressing, but there's so much you can actually do now that sharpens your intuition and so on.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely, I definitely say the same thing, and it's certainly an interesting time for a lot of reasons. One of the things that kind of comes out when I think about salespeople, and I mean, I guess this has been a
Mm.
problem for as long as I've been involved in tech and dealing with companies, is that everybody, especially in this kind of wild west time when there aren't a lot of standards for companies, everybody sort of develops their own little personal catalog or shadow IT, right? I've got my own little tools that exist
Yeah.
outside the company systems, and nobody's really looking at that. And so I'm curious because you deal with this a lot. I mean, what are the risks, and what should companies be thinking about when they think about governance? They don't want to kill the innovation, especially with the sales folks. But at the same time, you've got to have more control and a more structured way to go at this.
But it's really interesting. There's, Michael, something you said that I want to challenge you on, if you don't mind me to do that for
Sure.
1 second, right? You said we've always had an issue with shadow IT. Yes, we did, but it was constrained and it was visible because it was not in the shadows. Now what you have is it in the shadows because you have this true democratization. Shadow IT was at least visible to 20 people. Now you have a situation where a
Mm.
person could be watching on his screen over here his own company's entire, let's call it, my son works for Procter and Gamble, used to work for Procter and Gamble. They have a PG chat, as they call it internally, right? Companies
Mhm.
all have that. You put in your stuff, you get your queries and all that. but on the side, you're running your own little gizmo, your own stuff. So I actually did some research in about, I would say, mid 2025 is when I actually started seeing a momentous shift in how my rock star salespeople that I was coaching were doing a change. They were getting better at what they were doing. That blew my mind, Michael. How are they getting that better? It's because they're not relying only on the company's AI. What they were doing was that they built their own stack. The average investment that a salesperson made of those 8 that I surveyed will blow your mind, Michael. $300 that they were running per month in their
Yeah.
own choice of products and tools. They were also hands-on, but they were not vibe coding per se. But what they'd done was figure out how to prompt, figure out how to feed it. Now, just imagine shadow IT. Every
Mm.
rep has his own personal stack. There are bookmarks, prompts, experiments they're running amok.
Yep.
Some of them also don't understand. So I'll give you an example of where it fell out of my chair. I'm sitting with a customer, Michael, and I find out that he has been feeding his own little chat GPT competition RFPs. And I told him, what do you mean? So he says, well, I can't put it on the official in the system, right? Because it's forbidden, right? You can't. I'm like, okay, what exactly do you with that? So he said to me, I then tell it, take this and find a case that matches so that I can send a user case study to my customer. I said, okay, cool. Can you show me the last case study that you sent to the customer? And he showed them to me and I asked him, can I ask you a question? Look at these 4 that you sent. Are all 4 written correctly? Read them very carefully. He read them and then suddenly looks up and says, whoa, whoa, whoa. Half the stuff in this 4th case study is from the competition's material. It's not what we did. So I said to him, did you not read this before sending it out? He says, no, the darn thing hallucinated. I said, it didn't hallucinate. That's not hallucination. What you just achieved is exactly what it's designed to do.
Yep.
You keep throwing shit inside, assuming that there's a beautiful system in the background that is very divine. It's not. It's at the end of the day, it's just taking information, chunking it, trying to make sense of it. And in the end, something will go wrong. In the same way that you get a result that you can understand, well, guess what? Ultimately, caveat emptor. Buyer, you have to read the stuff you submit. Now,
Yeah.
can you imagine he wins the deal and the customer says, I want to see this customer as a reference. And you realize, there's no company called Piedmont Electrical, stuff like that. Well,
Yeah.
the company was correct, but the detailing inside was all wrong. So for me, shadow IT is pretty simple. And I've always said this to you guys, inconsistent messaging is number one. Your decisions that you take are also going to be different. One of the biggest things we have a problem with is that I have 5 sales reps. They all come with 5 different types of training, 5 different experiences. So when your company does not have a system, they all default to what they have learned. Can you imagine walking into a room when you have people trying to discuss a deal and there are 2 people speaking Farsi, 2 people speaking Arabic, and 1 speaking Aramaic, and another speaking Hebrew? They're all saying the same thing, but you're now looking at each other, what exactly is going on?
Yeah.
It's not that bad. It's still as bad enough. You have this thing, and I've always said to people, when you are generating nonsense on the side, which you consider as insight, because you don't have a better lens, you want to keep it to yourself, you don't show other people. But when he showed me those case studies and I saw the case study and I called it out to him, when you're using shadow IT, the opportunity to have colleagues interjecting or guiding you is gone, because you're not going to tell people that you're running a shadow IT department, right? That's it.
Yep.
And a very important thing which really blew my mind. Do you know why people run shadow IT? This will blow your mind, Michael. Because they don't want to lose their edge. And I said, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And all 8 of them told me as follows. Do you know why I will never share my model or my instruction, Deepak? Because I don't want my colleague to know how good I am at what the prompts I do. That's number one problem right there, boss. When shadow IT creates a class of exclusivity and building of barriers of, remember organization learning, right? We had a whole discussion on this, right? We used to have a lot of people making millions out of consulting around organizational learning and the history, and then knowledge management and knowledge. Everything goes for a toss. You've made such immense strides, and now we're going back to a reality where you have these databases in isolation. So it's problematic. I'm not saying that we need to crush the innovation, Michael. That's not what I'm saying. We need to channel it. We need to ring fence it. We need to control it. What you don't know will get you at some point.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. And it's interesting too, because you are right. Shadow IT by department is very different than shadow IT by individual, right? I mean, I can start to think about this like I'm protecting my own IP by using this thing. And yet if I don't use it in a structured, governed way, you put the company at risk for all kinds of different things because of the fact that it is operating completely outside of the norm, outside of the systems.
Yeah. And Michael, I think you're actually an expert on this. You've written on this extensively, right? There's also the ethics that come in, right? as to what and to what extent. Now, when I initially got into AI, I actually didn't give a toss about the ethical component, because it's only when I started realizing that I'm passing someone else's work off as mine. It's a very basic question that I'm asking myself: is that good, bad, ugly? That's when I realized how you prompt, how you extrapolate, how you build upon, then gives you the courage to say, this is my thinking. And I think when I spoke with those 8 individuals that were using AI the right way, they were very, very, very vocal on one thing. The final output, Deepak, I can vouch for, and I can fight for it from any angle you throw at me, because I know what I've done. The danger is those who take that, what's that word, Michael, you guys gave to the world? AI slop. Because I actually use AI a lot in my work. And yes, sometimes you get the pattern, right? It's not about fear, full stop. It's about lack of something, full stop. Everyone knows this XY construct is a good chat GPT. I get that. I respect that. So there's some things we need to really figure out. Sorry, back to you, sir.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting. I said most of the time when I find a problem with something that I sent out and didn't pay enough attention to, it's me slop, not AI slop. It's me hallucinating, not not the AI hallucinating. So
It's really, and Michael, you and I both are lacking hair, but we have gray in our beards. There's one reality you and I know. We've had this mantra all time along, which was garbage in, garbage out.
yeah,
And we understood exactly what it meant. If you are going to write, so when I, if else then statement, the simple programming stuff. If you're in an infinite loop, then buddy, you got something that you did wrong. It was easy to decipher. Now comes along generative AI and it takes away those rules and it actually gives it to you in natural language. You're having a conversation in the same way that you misunderstand other humans. What makes you think that you will not misunderstand AI or AI will not misunderstand you? Because language actually brings complexity in interpretation.
it does.
Zeros and ones and formulas are great. You at least know where the error is. That's why I've always told people getting 100 in maths is darn easy. I know you're going to argue. What? The point is, for the effort you put in, getting 100 in maths is easy if you know exactly the rules. The rules don't change just because you woke up and you
Right.
felt that, feel like I got to drop a bomb somewhere. That's not how it works, right? Mathematics means mathematics, right? It's
Yep.
the laws don't change. It's interpretation that changes. That's why you have one book
Yeah.
becoming interpreted by 20 people, creating 200 sects, and now you have a problem in the world. It's just so to me this was predictable. When generative AI goes and makes this slop generation so easy, the same slop is generated, and what's that Michael word you guys use? The same slop is never the same, Deepak, because that's just how AI works, right?
Yeah.
It will always generate, it's the same steaming pile of whatever, but it's just different shape, different texture, different flow. And I'm like, oh my God, it's still bad though. But yeah, we know that. But look how bad it
But
is. Isn't it
different.
cool? But they're different. You nailed it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Well, we were talking about transformation, and you said that your research shows you that 70% of transformation projects have fail, and that the root cause is often this disconnect between vision at the top and what actually happens at the bottom. Where people are actually doing the work, and I think what you said was it's sticky tape holding three things together that look like a straight line on
Yeah,
a strategy document, but
to,
not connected in practice, right? So for organizations that are trying to deploy AI in sales ops, how does that play out, and then how do you close the gaps?
let me give you a classic example. This will make you laugh. So I go to sales kickoffs and I listen to the awards, and for his extraordinary effort in ensuring that the customer got this, he actually sat down and worked overnight with the entire team to revitalize the entire pricing strategy. He then did the executive summary 17 times and he gave it to the customer. A deal that should have lasted 6 months ran for 17 months. Therefore, he's getting the award for salesperson of the year. All I heard was ran a broken process, figured out that it was broken, tried to do something different, found it was broken, was not in sync with the customer's needs. But because the outcome was great, we actually forgot how bad the inputs were. Now take that same mindset in sales and now say that here's AI. And now we have this entire scenario. Now everyone stands up and says, guys, this is what's happening with AI. And I'm asking people, when AI was not around, Michael, I had a 2/3 rate failure. With AI, I'm predicting it's 80 to 90% failure. Why? Because people are starting off with the wrong basis. And this is what I'm trying to explain to people. Transformation is never about an idea. Transformation is about execution. Transformation is about people adopting the new process and the new outputs that you're generating. People don't do that. What looks great in a strategy deck is not understood by people. Salespeople have a big phobia. I mean, I'm a super admin trained on 3 different products. Why? Because the same company decided to move from one CRM to the other because licensing costs were easier. I want to ask you a simple question, Michael. If your choice of a product is based on licensing cost and not how salespeople experience it or how it helps your sales, that tells you that a CRM system is not delivering what it's supposed to deliver, right? That simply means that even CRM systems are commoditized. If I take with the CRM system, still the same. Take this, still the same. Take this, still the same. Now that same mindset is now deciding on how to spend on AI. Right now, I'm looking at this follows. AI adoption is driven by fear of missing out, shiny object. I am watching with stunned, and I actually told people are training on Replit. Then they tell me I'm on Lovable. Then I tell them, are you on Huggable? He says, Huggable? I said, yeah, I just had to throw that in just to see. Some people don't even react to Huggable. No, I'm not on Huggable. They don't even realize that I'm making a joke out of it. All I'm trying to say is that you got this plethora of platforms, and people are actually now calling projects as follows. Guys, I just saw this new feature. Claude has come out with this. So we're going to now change our process to. And I'm like, you're allowing a tool, immediate methodology to define your project definitions. This is going to be interesting. Tell me the problem you want to solve. And this is what I call scaling stupidity. People are actually declaring projects in the AI space on things where the process itself is broken. If today you call 20 people and you only get 2 meetings out of it, do you really think that by automating and apply AI now reaching 60 people is going to take you? Of course, it's going to take you from 60 to maybe 6 people, but the ratio didn't change.
Yeah.
So it's those type of things. So when people announce a bold AI vision, what I'm asking them is, look at the tools, dashboards, and ask yourself a simple question. Will the data come in to make them go green? And how will that data come in? Then you suddenly realize that, guess what? This idea cannot be measured. And if you cannot measure an idea, how can you be sure that you are successful with it? That is why people tell me, you know what? We just did this AI thing. 30% of the time has been reduced. Awesome. There's a thing that we say in industrial engineering. When you go in and you fix a pipe somewhere and create a pressure point that shifts up, watch it carefully. A year or 6 months later, that point is going to blast open then. The ability to use Lean Six Sigma or process engineering is actually not because we want to show off, but it's actually to say that every system is interconnected. When AI does this little work over here, you've simply shifted. So you've automated a process at this point, but where's the next point? What's going to happen there? So that analysis is what I really focus on. So that's how I would answer that question. I hope that helps, Michael.
Yeah, no, it does. I think, and I've said this a lot, that you can automate a broken process. It just makes the brokenness faster. That's not really what you were trying to do, right? You have to fix the process.
And Mike, there's a question that my ex-boss used to like, and he's Frenchman, and he's done multi-million-dollar projects, and I really like this question. Always used to say one thing: ask the salesperson or anyone that you're serving, will this help you win? And if he hesitates, just hold back and ask yourself, what is going on? When you can't pass that simple litmus test, then you don't do it. At the end of the day, what is selling? Selling function is to sell more. And if you're creating a product or a project that is not going to deliver an outcome that is measurable, tangible, and growing above the baseline, then you got a problem right there. So ask the people that are going to use your tool and your output, will this let them sell better? Will it help you win? And if the answer is a hesitation or a no, don't do it.
Yeah. One of the things that strikes me about where we are with AI, and I mean, I guess any technology adoption really is about getting past the fear and building trust with the tool, whatever that might be, right? That I, as a user, am going to get this outcome, this better outcome that I'm expecting. But part of AI has been implemented, and you see this, in a lot of the systems that we use. It's a black box, right? So it's hard to know. It's hard to build that trust because it's hard to understand what's really happening. And if they lose, if you lose, then as you're a sales guy, you lose. It's always something that's not you that was the problem. And if it's a black box there, that's probably going to be my problem, right?
Yeah.
So how do you get past that? I mean, how do you make it more transparent? And just because it's a really sophisticated black box, I mean, that doesn't really solve your problem.
So people tell me, Deepak, to make a black box less of a black box means it less destructible. It makes it destructible, which means that if an aircraft fell, then the box is going to be shattered. So what? And I'm like, stop with the metaphors. When we
Yeah,
talk about black
exactly.
box, we are actually talking about what is essentially a trust problem, Michael, full stop.
Yeah.
Sellers don't just need an answer, right? They need to, and when I say seller, I'm talking about us, me, the selling guy, the salesperson, right? There's a rationale that they need to understand and then defend with the customer. Now, when you create black box methodologies, because that's where my background is, predictive analytics, where the computation is so advanced that even I didn't understand the maths. But I'm being asked, trust me, this number is the number that will maximize your efficiency to win. Okay. Now I look at my numbers and I'm like, I don't think I won the deal. Oh, well, that's your problem because you brought some subjective thing into, maybe you were in a bad mood, maybe you didn't do this. This becomes problematic. So I've realized one thing. The when salespeople see a black box, they define it very simple. It's something they don't understand because it's not been explained to them. It's something they don't trust because they don't know how it helps them. What is it for me? What's in it for me? That is never answered. That's a big problem. So we have a model that now says this is the right price. Sellers always ask me a simple question: how do I know that? And I think we are now on to something very interesting. We're now into generative AI. Now, what you can do with generative AI is say, hey, I've got this very sophisticated output, which is a black box. I don't understand it. I've got this number. Could you explain to me? Because no manager can explain it themselves, but AI can actually simplify it to you. So, on one hand, I argue about the black box nature of stuff, but I'm also telling you the very same person that gave us this can also demystify it. And that was the biggest benefit I saw from AI. What you now have is a generative AI can now actually allow you to understand I have a number, give me the genesis of the number. You can also tell it, can you allow me to visualize this number that you're giving me compared to my last 25 deals and let me understand that better? Now, do you see what's happening over here? You're now self coaching yourself. Previously, that activity would be in the form of a training module or a group of people explaining why the price is right. And they themselves don't know why the price is right. Now, we still don't know why the price is right, but we now have a better grasp of where it came from. I've always said this to people. People are not, problem is not change. People are okay with change. People don't like uncertainty. So when you introduce AI, introduce predictive analytics, people actually don't mind that. The problem they have is that the uncertainty of where and how did you get this number? Why should I trust it? And then the data doesn't show you that it can be trusted, but you're still telling them trust it because every quarter we refresh the data or the system learns from mistakes. Yeah, sure. So can you imagine a mother says, this hospital had 7 kids that fell at birth and died. And the hospital says, don't worry, guys, we have a process, we're learning from it. So we won't have this much fatalities in the future. You got to ask yourself, wow, that's the seriousness at which I talk about. Now, at the same time, for the first time in my career, I actually have a glimmer of hope because I really believe that the ability for Gen AI to, in the right interface, translate complex models and that output in human reasoning, yes. Now I'm going to speak the seller's language at his pace, at his convenience, when he wants to hear it. Otherwise, you got to wait for humanity, and now at your own pace, you can figure it out. And the trade-offs. Old days, we were very bad at explaining the trade-offs. If you use this price and if you do this, this may or may not happen. Now, at least we can have you can actually have a great conversation. We can explain those trade-offs in language that salespeople understand, Michael. That's very important. And I've realized one thing. If a sales rep is actually educated enough to position a price and given the confidence in the price, do you know what he does? He fights for that price with the sell buyer.
Right.
Right now, when you give someone a black box, it's human nature. One of the first things we tell people is that in sales, it's about mindset, your behavior, attitude, and your technique. Technique will not usually fail you. What fails you is your mindset in the moment. You walk in and the customer says, I don't like your price, it's ridiculously high. And your first response is, okay, so what's your budget? And he says, my budget is, and he gives you a number that he knows he's playing the mess with you. And then you say to him, oh, I can go get approval for that. And you
Yeah.
win the deal. People are
Yeah.
celebrating that win, but you got to ask yourself, how much money did you leave behind on the table? So
Yeah.
that's how I would answer that. At the end of the day, I really believe with Gen AI, you got more transparency. You'd have a better way of understanding. So I would recommend to people that if you are creating black box methodologies, then at least create a layer that allows people to demystify the black box by using AI to their advantage to understand the output of the very same AI. That's powerful. Why did you write what you wrote, ChatGPT? Is a favorite question of mine. What were you thinking? What is an unorthodox argument that one could make against our price positioning that we have just adopted? That pushes envelope. So I would use the same logic here. Hey, ChatGPT, the system gave me this pricing. I don't believe this pricing is correct because I look at the past data. None of the winning price was that number. Why do you think this price will win? Now let it tell you. Now you debate with it. And There's another thing, the Kanban process where even a production guy can pull a string and stop the intent plant.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling that if we don't give salespeople the ability to actually question, and then say, I'm still deeply offended or don't understand, stop the press, go back to the table. We don't do that often because we consider salespeople to be, they don't have a PhD in mathematics or statistics, but they don't understand. No, hold on. But they do have a PhD in life knocks. They know a good argument when they hear one. And you cannot argue that because someone has, because let's put it this way, the sun always rises from the east is established in fact. I don't think it's going to pop up in the west one day because it's not a black swan event. That's something different. So this one of those things. Sorry, Michael, bit
No, that's
long-winded there.
good.
So back to you,
I,
sir.
no, I think if you think about change management in general, I always felt like that the thing that people push back the hardest on is the fact that things are being done to them, not with them, right?
Bingo, kaboom! That's your T-shirt slogan right there, boss. Right there.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Well, so let's shift gears a little bit, talk a little bit about Rise Up at Work, because one of the things I think is really interesting here is this idea of trying to help this generation that coming out of school, they can't afford to a coach. They can't afford self-reflection and getting the right frameworks and all that. So most career solutions, they focus on trying to get you hired, but they don't really focus on how do you do the job? How do you build off of that?
How do you
right?
flourish? Yeah.
So talk a little bit about what you've seen with Rise Up at Work and what you're trying to do.
So I've been a coach, and in my coaching journey, I've coached 1,500 people. Now people say, well, I'm like, yeah, because I'm old and I've been at it for a very long time. So please, it's one of those things. So the reality is that the first core insight that hit me was, we have this entire system, Michael, that is designed to take a lot of money from you, put you through high school, put you through college, and you now have a degree behind your name. And your life's entire agenda for 90% of the people going to college, because 10% might have entrepreneurial expertise or may want to do something different. But 90% of the guys go in knowing very upfront that I'm going to get a degree and then I'm going to get a job. Now the fun part starts. They go to classes, they have a syllabus, they have books prescribed to them, they have a teaching assistant. They tell me that college was the hardest time of my life. I'm like, no, wait till you get to your desk, sit down, you call your mom, I made it. Mom, I'm looking around. I'm surrounded by smart people. I made it, Ma. Ma is very happy. 2 months later, you're calling Ma. Ma, I don't understand. I got my salary and something called taxes hit me. Ma, wow, I just realized that my boss never has time for me because I can't find him. He's always in meetings with the other people he manages. I didn't realize that I would be one of 20 people reporting to the same manager. Suddenly he says, hey, wait a minute. I just saw Peter got promoted. But how did Peter get promoted? I thought I was working harder than Peter. Now what you have is this perfect storm. So now he goes to his manager and his manager says to him, this is what I need from you, A, B, C, D. He comes back and realizes he doesn't know how to respond to that. This is what managers have told me. Great idea. And then he takes it and runs with it and gives it to someone else. I'm like, I did not sell my ability to do the work. He didn't see it, so he gave it to someone that has sold his ability. What will you do about it now, boy? That's so. As I was working through, I actually also realized one more very important thing, and this is very personal to me when I say this to you, Michael, which is 21 years old are typically broke. They love where they are in life, but they don't know what to do with it. Now you need to speak to someone, and that person says to them, I'm a coach, I'm an exec coach, I'll help you become a leader, I'll help you solve your problems. My billable rate is 200 and I recommend a 10-hour package. The guy sitting there thinking $2,000. Well, I don't have $2,000. So then he goes to a friend who is as bad as he is in terms of his own ambition and understanding, right? So you now have this entire ecosystem. There's the scaffolding has ended. You look around you and you see a building and you see a website and you see 1-800 call me, I'll help you, benefits line. But there's no structure. What you really need is you need structure. You also need someone to help you with reflection. One of the things that I've always tell people is that the amount of wattage that we do not use because we are not coached to think critically is bad. What if I were to ask you that I want to give you a tool or a technique? And that's what RiseUp is about. All I'm trying to do is that I'm building something that's finally catching up with reality. We're going to start with diagnostics, reflection, interviews, coaching, and then cohorts. Why cohorts? Because at age 21, these people are far more social than you and I are, Michael. You and I like to go to these highfalutin meetings because we want to meet people that we can sell to. We write books. 21-year-olds don't write books. 21-year-olds will actually hang around with like-minded people. They might go to a special interest group. Guys, the sales community of Sao Paulo is meeting in this cafe for 20 minutes. Come and network with us. They do that stuff. They sit there, they see other successful people actually come back frustrated because they can't figure out. This is a true story. This is my son. He's doing his MBA at NYU. Michael, he just went to an event and he came back and said to me, Dad, I look at all these kids around me doing startups. And I said to him, but you are also working with me on my startup. He said, yeah, yeah. I says, what, yeah, yeah? Did you tell them proudly that you're working on a startup? And then he had this look on his face. What is happening is that we're so attuned to listening to other people's greatness, we sometimes forget our own greatness. And I'm trying to tell people, stop this. The compassion that you show to others, if we could show it to ourselves by self-reflection, is so powerful. I used to hate it when people said, put the mask on your face and then help your granny, then help your mom, then help the child. I used to think that's such a stupid thing to do. But you know what? It makes a lot of sense. Self-help, self assistance is very critical, Michael. And I say this as someone who struggled with his own mental health, sought external help during COVID, a year and a half out of social touchy-feely vibes, working with people, not working constantly on Zoom. In fact, I would argue today we accept 6 a.m., 6 p.m. calls because of COVID. It actually made us so attuned to taking a call because we were desperate for social interaction. But that's not social interaction. I would love to be sitting next to you and having a cup of coffee and having a conversation, Michael, and then we high five each other at a great point. That is the tactile fun that I would like to get into. So for me, what RiseUp is doing is simply acknowledging that today AI is at a point where it's actually going to allow us to understand the longitudinal abilities that you develop over time. Can you imagine that your innermost thoughts are understood by someone? You are talking on a cohort, the cohort messaging is there. You are looking at courses and guidelines that are also part of it. At any point, you can stop and say, I'm very confused. What's the difference between self-doubt and imposter syndrome? And you're told that answer immediately. You come back and you go in a forum, and in the forum, someone writes, hey guys, I applied for a promotion. 8 of us applied, only one got approved. And the guy that got approved, he had the worst score of all. What happened here? And people tell their stories. Now, can you imagine take all of that and help people? The answer is, all I'm trying to achieve is very simple. In one's career, you get maybe 5 inflection points, which will just make you great at the end of the 30-year journey. If you get those 5 inflection points correct in terms of the right job at the right time, the right promotion at the right time, the right price negotiation, or you choosing to leave your organization to take a bigger job somewhere else. These push-pull type of dynamics is also where we have frameworks. Now, if I can help you take the right 5 judgment calls over 30 years, those judgment calls were delivered to you on average, and we did some simple maths here, Michael. It'll blow your mind. 37% more net worth. People tell me 37% for all that effort. What all that effort? You were thrashing around, buddy. One of my investors actually said a question that I'm going to close on and then hand it back to Michael. He said to me, my daughter is very smart. She works for a law firm. She doesn't need your services. I said, that's cool. Ask her a simple question. Where does she seek guidance from? Is she going online to read blogs? Is she speaking to colleagues? Is she calling a friend at 10 o'clock? You suddenly realize everyone needs guidance. It's the same principle, right? Everyone uses AI, but no one wants to tell anyone because they want to make sure they sound smart, not acknowledge that AI helped them. Same principle applies in life. So the biggest bugbear that I have is convincing extremely ambitious individuals to understand that they do need some help. Structure. And people are telling me, well, is this therapy? I'm like, no. What makes you think this is therapy? But I can tell you one benefit. You get some of those decisions done the right way very early in life. Because the first 5 years are formative in any juncture. Your economic output at the end of 30 years actually depends on the first 10 years. People miss that. Yeah. Though reality is that I made the most money in my career. In fact, I was laughing when I said I did the maths. In the last 10 years of my corporate career, I made 3x more than I made accumulative over. But that makes sense, doesn't it, Michael? Because you're supposed to. Now the question is, Deepak, how did you do that? Because I took the right decisions at the right time upfront. So that greatness, you get a 7% increase, you get a 12% increase, add it all up, those deltas count. Couple of apartments that you can put aside, my friend. That's how I explain it, Michael. Back to you, sir. Sorry, I went all over the place.
No, that's good. It certainly, I think, resonates. And I was thinking about this too. We've talked so much about the arms race in AI, right? I mean, companies have to have it. They're implementing. They're doing all these different system changes and things. And yet, underneath that, when we think about the people, we've created a situation that really does create a ton of anxiety, a lot of fear, and it it strikes me you've spent your career studying, what makes salespeople thrive, not, not just perform, but thrive, right? So, looking ahead, I mean, what do you think the relationship between humans and AI and sales is going to look like in a year or two, three? That's hard in AI terms because, as we know, that
Yeah.
things are moving very quickly. But what skills should people be investing in now that can really help them be on the right side of this change?
You know what, Michael? This is going to make you weep when I say this to you. I predict sales will be more human in the future. Because right now, what is happening is that we need to figure out how our humanity has to change with AI. But your humanness is going to change, but it still remains human. You will actually become more articulate, more concise, more precise because a lot of the other stuff has been picked up by AI. That's how I look at it. Now,
Mm.
today, do you know how we get frustrated? You're on a call with an AI. Get me an agent. I'm sorry, I didn't understand that, or some other nonsense, right? There'll be a time where I predict in the next 2 years, you're going to actually get an option. Would you like to speak to a human? There'll be an extra $20 charge. Many people may actually select that because they're getting exhausted and tired. And I've always said this, look, AI, I love it. It has taken a lot of the repetitive analytical preparatory work off the table. Awesome.
Yeah.
Why? Because I don't want to bill my client $100, $200, $300 an hour for having to take his information and put it into an Excel spreadsheet and create a graph to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
When I'm on a conversation with you right now, I'm with a client. My transcript is automated. I don't even have to worry about it. It gets into a Google Doc. From Google Doc, an agent picks it up, takes it and parses it and synthesizes it. Then there's another agent that says, thank you very much. By the way, there's another transcript with the same client that happened 2 weeks ago. It does the delta analysis, what changed, what's not happening. Then all these little bits at the end go and give me a playbook that I have for each client, and it actually optimizes the playbook to reflect the changes and the conversations going on. Now,
Yeah.
if am I going to gloat on that? I cannot, because that's now the lowest denominator. If I as a coach can do it, I guarantee every coach is going to get to that very fast, very soon. So what keeps me distinctive is the fact that I take that information, and in that conversation with the customer, I make his life seem so different at that particular moment. He doesn't pay me for getting these playbooks or for all this efficiency. He pays me for bringing meaning to his life by me having learned from all that work that's happened in the background. So all I can tell you is right now is that I am absolutely convinced that trust building will matter more. Judgment will matter more because those who are going to learn from AI the wrong way are going to lose that edge. Judgment is a huge edge. Trust building is massive. There is no customer that I am aware of who would ever forget breaking bread with you. Many buyers don't want to break bread with you. I get that. But many buyers will not give you a check if they doubt your character or they doubt that your company can deliver what needs to be. There's no one who can do that unless there's some underhand nonsense going on. I have personally disengaged from people on that process, right? So and you need to challenge the outputs that come out from AI. Please stop taking AI output just because you haven't seen things written like that or the volume of stuff. Don't get excited about it, right? There's this joke that we have in India about American English. We say we love American politicians. They stand up and speak for an hour with this immense elocution, which amazing words. Now we stand back and say, so what do you want me to do about it? You realize there's nothing we can do about it because it was all lofty and powerful, but there's nothing you can do about it. That's the catch. We are right now getting synthesized speeches from humanity done over the last 5,000 years that some system has learned. Of course, it's going to give you stuff that is very powerful because you haven't read 5,000 books, but it has.
Yeah.
It's going to find those 5,000 words that are going to blow you apart. And now you're suddenly saying, wow. Come on. I mean, in fact, I don't know how to say this to you, but I'm very sure you take the Constitution, and someone actually told me someone's done that, and run it through AI. It'll argue that that's also fake. That's a, so
Probably.
so generic sellers doing generic work are going to be the next geriatrics on the planet. Sorry about the generic geriatric play on words there. Sellers who do not use AI will lose their jobs to people using AI. That's another warning I can give you right now.
Yeah.
Sellers who are not optimizing to what the buyer wants, justification, value analysis, and then pricing follows, will lose out big time. Use AI to become better at the moment. Ask AI for scenarios. It's not objection handling. Objection handling anyone can do. I can go to Barnes and Noble, Michael, and I can a book that says 20 ways to break a price objection. Awesome. But guess what? Most rockstar salespeople have learned from those books, but they deploy from instinct, gut, and that radar sends spidey tingling, something is going on, you turn around and there's octopus about to kill you or something, right? One of those things. Sorry, sir.
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, so before I let you go, so obviously great conversation. I really appreciate it. And I know the audience is going to value this, but I always like to ask at the end for you to recommend somebody that the audience could learn from, author, podcaster, whatever you think would be valuable. So what would you recommend?
To be honest, there are two people that come to mind right now, right? And both are actually LinkedIn top voices in sales. And I've actually brought both onto my own podcast and that's why I'm recommending, because I think that one of them is actually he's the CEO of Sales Table, Suresh, Vasu. Suresh is also multiple exits. He's also got a venture studio. And full disclosure, he's also the lead investor in my own startup, right? But I went to Suresh not because he's a technocrat or he has access to money. No. I went to Suresh because he's a darn good human being. He's very keen to understand what AI is going to do to salespeople, and he's building a product. I would say that you will have a great conversation with someone like that, Michael. Then there's Mark Finnick. That's another name I can throw at you from sales. He's focused actually on deals and how to make deals and how to win deals. And you can ask him what's AI doing there, and you'll be shocked to learn that his entire motivation is actually understanding what the customer wants. The AI is only a tool to shape your output for the customer, but the core idea must come from you, and that comes from guidance, structure, and so on. And lastly, for someone, I think you know Ethan Mollick. I just love the way he writes.
Yeah.
He's just an outlier. So if I could just force someone from a pure AI point of view, I would say Ethan Mollick. But if I would force from a pure sales lens point of view, sir, I would talk about Mark Finnick and Suresh Madhuvarsu. These are two good human beings. I have both on my podcast. In fact, they're invited to my new TV show that's coming out also, Michael, because they just make so much sense. And of course, coming from sales, I've got a bias, right?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, Deepak, thanks so much for joining today. Really, really interesting conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me, Michael.
Thanks. And that's the show for this week. Thank you all for joining us. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the show. If you enjoy the show, please leave us a review to help others find us. For more research on AI and other software, check out arianresearch.com. If you're an expert in AI, generative AI, or business automation, either as a provider or an end user, email your information to disambiguation@arianresearch.com. Don't forget to join us next week. Disambiguation is an Arian Research production. I'm Michael Fauscette, and this is the Disambiguation Podcast.